Right, but without further ado, I want to jump into the show and introduce Ivan to you guys. Hi, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm going to be meeting somebody really interesting, Ivan Imhoff from the Optimization Academy. And like always, I've asked our guest to share a little bit about himself before so that I can properly introduce him. And there is a lot of stuff going on on Ivan's side. So he has been starting in e-commerce early even around 2001 for the Hilton hotels with very big e-commerce builds. And then he moved into consulting and even built an affiliate site. Moved through a gaming company, which was a difficult task back then in the recession. And then, kept on focusing on sort of the challenges in performance marketing, which led to the House of Kaizen, which was a conversion rate optimization agency, and then sort of also developed further into basically a performance marketing agency in New York as well as in London. And what he realized back then is that there is a lot of technologies, techniques, and even the core understanding about user psychology that, a lot of marketeers really didn't sort of fully appreciate and fully went into. So basically, they preferred to the ease of bots versus the hardcore thinking that is actually required to move the needle on conversion rate and persuasion. So I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation because we're going to be talking from actual real insights here. So after selling his share of the agency, he decided to take his lessons that he has been collecting over the years and turn them into an education vehicle, which is basically the courses that the Optimization Academy is offering, and which is still running today. So we're also going to be chatting about this a little bit. But he's also just about to step up as the Global Vice President of Digital for Kaspersky. So this is a very long introduction because there's a lot of experience. So first, Ivan, welcome to the show and thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you so much. I mean, I absolutely love these types of conversations and the ability to sort of explain backgrounds and the why, right? Everybody loves the whole thing about the why. But the digital space is a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? Being a marketer on one side, my God, you cannot believe what's written on the cans most of the time. So yeah, thank you very much for having me, and we can go back into those details as well. And by the way, if I curse, just hopefully you have that bleep button at hand, nice and ready to go, because despite my American accent, I'm actually French, and us French are super grumpy and we curse like sailors.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep a close eye on that one.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, tell us a little bit about, in your words, about the Optimization Academy a little bit. What is it all about, and how would you introduce the Academy?
So the biggest problem that I've faced personally with myself was looking at the world, the digital world, whether it was when we were, doing large media display campaigns and advertising multi-channel to designing sites, converting visitors, and like you mentioned it, that 2% conversion rate. That means that 98% of people, in the words of Avinash Kaushik, came and left after throwing up on your doorstep. And it drove me crazy because we are in love with visual design. We went through an era of flat design, and it was 3D design and flat design and all this mobile adaptive and all that crap. And I say it on purpose because we forget that technology is a vehicle of you selling to me or me selling to you. And we have almost forgotten the human contact, the human conversation, the elements of persuasion. And it's very imbalanced. Then with all the clients that we had at House of Kaizen, I faced a very interesting challenge that I really didn't see coming, is that we needed to we were growing, so we needed to train a lot of our team members. And both our media teams and our conversion teams needed to be trained. Now, online, there's no real sort of fundamental university. You can train to be a doctor, an architect, and I always use the analogy of an engineer at Porsche. And an engineer at Porsche doesn't wake up one morning, sit around a board table and go, let's go through our ideation stage. No, we had to invent that word in the digital marketing space. And that's not how we solve problems. So I needed to figure out how do we train these people. And we had developed sort of methodologies and models that helped us think through problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that became, and one day I sort of went, oh, and I said it in French. I said, oh, putain, there you go. It was literally going, how do I systematically get people to go through steps, mental steps, and going through these steps with frameworks would help them get to the solutions that were adapted to their problems.
Okay, makes a lot of
And
sense.
that's almost that eureka moment. And so the academy is actually a bridge between what people are craving for, which is just follows these miracle 5 steps like an idiot, like a drone, and you will be a millionaire. And the beautiful course content that you'll find in other sites, which is, I have to admit, very, very good, but which is very theoretical. It'll be your neuromarketing. It'll be your psychological biases and all of these. But what's missing in the middle when you're trying to run a business, run a marketing campaign, grow your organization, and so forth, is the application. So the Optimization Academy is a little bit more what I would call the Pirelli methodology. It was an old advertisement that said, Pirelli, the tire manufacturer, that said, power is nothing without control. And I always try to find a way so that this thinking and this knowledge allows you to apply it to your split testing, your optimization. I'll give you an example, immediately identify, okay, number one, eye flow control. How do I guide visitors through my story? Oh, visual barriers. If I skip content, I am not communicating my value proposition. My value proposition is made of 6 components: what it is, what it does, what it looks like, so forth. I go through my product pages. Shit, we forgot a component of comparison. We forgot my positioning statement. I need to rewrite my scripts. So they're all checklists and methodologies that all of a sudden, and there is a problem with all of this. You will never look at a web page in the same way. So now I can look at any web page and I'm like, my positioning statement is not correct. My direction strategy is not correct. I'm missing a piece of value proposition. And that's the whole thing about the academy, is getting you to understand all these toolboxes and checkpoints so that you, whether you're in fintech and retail and travel, can guide you through those changes with rationale.
That
There you
makes a
go.
lot
Sorry,
of
long
sense.
explanation, but we'll just summarize it as Pirelli.
No, but it makes a lot of sense. Like really giving you, I think probably template is the wrong word, but giving you a guideline on how to sort of apply your value proposition into sort of a framework that you can put into a website and actually makes sense. Very, very interesting. So could you tell me a little bit, who would be the people that benefit most from your classes and services? Is that is this large teams? Tell us a little bit about the people that are taking your courses.
So if we take the most specific roles, it's going to be people that are going to be involved with CRO, optimization. Mm-hmm. Now, optimization doesn't necessarily mean A/B testing. I mean, we've been doing CRO since, I don't know, 3,000 years or 4,000 years, right? The guy that would organize his stalls with the fruits and put the red apples at the far back so as to attract the eye and all that good stuff. So anybody that is in charge with, I'll call things like revenue targets, ROI to marketing spend, and conversion or bounce rates, that's who it's for. Today in the digital space, we have so many different titles for every single person in the company that it's sort of hard to say, okay, are you CRO or optimization or revenue optimization or performance? But also your retailers. In a broader scope, though, I try to put courses that talk about pricing or design, but also benchmarking with decoy products, landing pages, expectation gaps, and all these principles. And the reason why I say it's a broader scope, it's because a lot of teams that have to work together use different vocabularies. They use a different nomenclature to talk. And what that creates in terms of a problem is a conflict of ideas. So in other words, you have people that are somebody told me one day, what is the difference between a conversation and an argument? And the difference between a conversation and an argument is that in a conversation, you're trying to resolve a common problem. In an argument, you're trying to determine who's right. Yeah. The idea of the rest of the courses, and to get into a broader framework or a broader team of individuals, is that we can develop a common nomenclature, common mechanics, a common way of thinking and looking at things. When you're trying to resolve something that has to do with value proposition, you're not trying to resolve something that is linked to, say, a frictional component like the UI or menu selections or your dynamic navigation or whatever that may be. You're trying to resolve, how do I convey a specific benefit to a specific audience? This way we remove ideas. So That's why the broader team is so important. I get a lot of actually director level people coming in because this way it helps them guide their teams a little bit better. But generally, it's going to be your managers, about 25% directors, and I get actually a couple of CEOs because they love it. They're like, oh, good. I see where my agency is screwing me a little bit, or I see where my marketing team is telling me a little bit of bullshit. And it helps just people remove the idea of the concept of ideas. We
What
should never talk about ideas.
what's your experience while you're mentioning the CEOs there? Maybe a small tangent. What's your experience with CEOs sort of getting in touch with this idea of conversion rate optimization, right? Because I mean, it is super crucial, but it can also be seen as something kind of like small that is on the website somehow. Like the perspective is important on how you think
Yeah.
about it, right? What's your experience? How are CEOs thinking about conversion rate optimization?
So you're going up against people like Google and Facebook and Twitter, and these guys are, and then you're going to add your Oracles and all your, big media networks and so forth. These guys are pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the industry to brainwash us. I'm starting to sound like some sort of Bitcoin maximalist. Um, by the way, I accept Bitcoin if you want to buy the courses. But the entire industry is geared towards the expenditure, right? You spend money to make money. All these bullshit cliches. And what that means is that there is very little headspace or mental attention that we will allocate to things that are outside of that. Then you have, on the other hand, so you say, okay, you want to grow your business, advertisement, right? Google, Facebook. That's where all the money goes to, unless you're a huge company and you're spending it in your WPP group and all those big, nice, lovely agencies with those beautiful marble hallways. And then on the other side, you're going to have technology, and you're going to say, my technology will help you miraculously, right? Because amazing technologies, increase your conversion rates, persuade your customers. And you see it in things like, heat map and eye tracking and all those companies. They say, know why your visitors aren't converting because you have some sort of click map. So, or you have user sessions. Somehow that magic software allows you to read a customer's minds. It's, ooh, amazing. So you're stuck in these two environments.
Mhm.
That's why there's so little headspace for the actual team building of CRO or conversion optimization. It's either I plug in Miracle Tech or I spend money in advertisement. And we are so outweighted in terms of marketing spend or what I call brainwash power that's where CEOs just do not think about this. It is still today not important. And I know that so many people, I see it on LinkedIn and I praise them saying, test everything, testing optimization. You look at the guys at hotels.com, 256-man team, amazing. I was like, please, can you do more talks? Can you do TV advertisement to say, convert and test? But despite that, when technology companies say test everything, that too is utter BS. So we're stuck in so many places. A lot of the customers that I used to work with, they tried testing. They fell victims to this marketing hype. They'd spend $2, 3, $400,000 a year on testing technologies. Try to put some people together. Marketers would sit around a table, rah rah rah, got plenty of ideas, argument to see who's got the biggest ego. Test a whole bunch of crap. Color buttons, color positions, always the same damn thing. Yield curves went nowhere,
Mhm.
right? And then they gave up and go, what's easier instead of busting my butts on this? Let's put some more money into PPC. Who's the winner? Google's the winner. I love Google, by the way.
It's very interesting. I have maybe one small follow-up question on this. Why do you think it's so hard for leaders to connect conversion rate to success or to like kind of like buy in deeper into, trying to improve conversion rate? Because I mean, ultimately it's directly correlated, right? If your
Yep,
conversion rate is
absolutely.
higher, you have more clients. So what do you think is the root cause of this?
Uh,
Like,
the, the root. So I spent 10 years trying to ask myself that same question. I think I'm getting to an answer.
Mhm.
And I think the answer is that conversion is a simple output metric, right? It's a very simple metric. What is required to influence it is gargantuanly difficult. So when I started back in the 90s, even before going to digital, I used to do a lot of revenue management for Hilton. And I love the world of dynamic pricing. I'm literally building a course right now on incentive testing and incentive design, discounts, etc. It's an art form. It is hyper complex. When you start talking to people about a true price, variable price, core price, what? I remember when I started working with the Wall Street Journal, I had a massive meeting with all the directors, and I said, "You do understand that your price is wrong." He goes, "You just got off a plane from London. Who the hell are you?" And I said, "Your price is always wrong. There's people that would have been willing to pay more, and if you had dropped it by just a few cents, there's more people that would have bought it. There's no comprehension." And that's a tiny factor of conversion optimization. Dynamic margin management with true price. People look at me and they go, "What on earth are you talking about?" I was like, dude, in the travel industry, that's even not even kindergarten level.
Yep, yep.
And then you have to go user psychology, psychology of choice, psychology architecture, retailing frameworks, right? People design homepages. I was working with a huge retail client here in the UK. They design a brand new homepage. I go, okay, what's going to be your retail framework to populate your homepage? What are going to be the rules, the monetization rules? How are you going to categorize, subcategorize, or put individual products? What are the, we'll make something pretty.
Okay, I see. Interesting.
So,
Okay.
to just in one sentence, to finish that question, you have so many disciplines that come in to run conversion: content production, iFlow, visual design, pricing, product benchmarking, psychology, all the neuromarketing BS that it's there, that you can't wrap your brain around it. To build a team around it, it's mental. And that complexity, it's just a pretty web page. No. It's very complex. And that's why I think people skirt it. They're afraid of it. They don't understand it. And they have alternatives.
Yep.
So,
which would be then PPC, for example. Makes
there
sense.
you go. There you go. Those are the dynamics.
Okay, so it's like what I'm hearing from you, it's sort of the route of less resistance, right?
Absolutely. I call it water. It's the movement of water.
Very good. Okay, so I would like to learn a little bit about how you sort of apply your experience to the Optimization Academy in itself, right? Which also has products, which also
Yes.
is converting. Maybe at first, can you tell me a little bit about how people are finding the Optimization Academy in these days?
So I am terrible at marketing, right? And it's taken me a very long time to understand it. That's why at agency level, I had great people doing it, because I am shit at doing it. Absolutely. And I apologize for the language, but you got to know your weakness. You want to be a good entrepreneur. One, I'm not one of them. And two, you got to know your weaknesses. So the way that I approached it is, so I've made a lot of mistakes with the Optimization Academy, and I over-focused on the product, right? One, I underestimated the complexity of building the courses, like just the thought process. Two, I'm very finicky when it comes to building examples and illustrations and the animation flow. And I'm not a designer in any way. I have no artistic skill whatsoever. But when you go into these courses, I mean, there's 50 or 60 hours of courses, right? And some of the courses took me 2 or 3 months to make. Just some PowerPoint slides have 250 animations built in. I over-engineered it. But for me, it was always about how well am I communicating the message. The problem with that is then I failed at the marketing. And when I realized that, I was like, well, I don't want to do the marketing. So the way that I've done it, because I know quite a few people in sort of in digital industries, I do it through agencies. So they know their audience. They are in contact with clients and prospects. And now I've turned the Optimization Academy as lead generation for individuals and agencies. So when the agencies or they're going to be working on landing pages, we have to educate the marketing team, the directors team, and so that the agency or the groups or consultants have a common dialogue. They go, and here's the academy as part of our services. And so I've used a third party or a partner sort of network, because I am absolutely incapable of doing social media and marketing. It's just not my cup of tea.
Makes total sense. Does that then mean you still would have conversion rate optimization goals for the academy in itself? I mean, because you still would get traffic.
I do. So I still, I still sell subscriptions direct. I don't set myself particular goals because I actually also do so much. So I used to do a lot. I still do a lot of consultancy because I like to fix problems myself. And work with clients and be in contact in business. I just like business models and understanding people's issues. So I try to work on it a little bit. And again, I don't work on it enough. It's just there's not enough hours in the day, and I'm no spring chicken anymore. So
I wouldn't be able to tell.
good. Well, you're far too kind, but. So yeah, and those are some of the decisions that people need to think about when they're building their businesses. I think that I've made a lot more bad decisions when it comes to the marketing side, and a lot of good decisions in terms of the quality of the product. But even there, I've made some bad decisions. So I guess this the whole thing about failing fast, and my biggest piece of advice is, ironically, don't focus way too much on your product and get all the failures in your marketing cycle out of the way quickly.
And what would be metrics that you would be focusing on for the academy? Is there a combination of metrics that you sort of guide your success on, or what would it be?
So revenue is the ultimate. I used to price it too low, which means that you have to have an exceedingly high level of traffic, or I'll call them engagements or touch points. Because I used to do a lot of speaking, and what I used to do is, and I still do them actually. I have two in October, but I do live events where I do a power day, and then after, as part of the price of that power day, you get the academy. So when a lot of people do these live trainings, they get what I call the light bulb moment. They understand that it's not just one course. You have to take the whole series of courses. It starts molding your brain. It's like teaching you a language, and then all of a sudden you have a click, and you go, I can start having a rudimentary conversation. So after a sort of course like 12 or 15, and yeah, it's a level of effort, right? You get this sort of light bulb moment where all these pieces start coming together, and you go, oh, so that's why my bounce rate doesn't work. And holy shit, I have 2 visual blockers on my page. And Jesus, I can't explain my value proposition. And oh my God, I didn't do this. And that's what a layered image is. And so there's a click moment, and I can communicate that click moment in the live event, and then people go, and I tell them, don't take notes. I go, so we do this for like 7 hours in a day, and I go, there's 50 hours more for you later, and they're like, dude, this is awesome. And that's where I get the CEOs, the directors, the marketers, and da 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 da. And depending on the markets, some of these guys will study their asses off. And then you go to France, and they just probably do a couple of hours, and they go, let's go to lunch.
Very good.
But that's the way that I've approached it, and I do that with my partners. And there's that element of engagement, or they're talking about real programs with them, and so they go, well, you see, there's this principle that's applied, and there's this issue that's applied, and all of a sudden, instead of having these opinions, people go, I understand what's happening with the visitor's mind. I understand the issue of perception. Oh shit, we screwed up the choice box. Now I get it.
That really makes me want to sort of review your courses. Sounds really interesting, actually. I would be curious, what would be one of the last challenges that you would have on your own page for the Optimization Academy? Is that maybe something that you've been overcoming with your own principles? Is there like kind of a war story you could share?
I should war stories. I did have a couple of business partners along this way that I've lost, because I think a lot of people, the biggest one is that people always underestimate the level of effort. They always underestimate the length and the cost of doing things. And even coming in with a little bit more cleared-eyed, I still got caught with my expectations. When it comes to the site itself, my God, I wish I knew how to write better, despite writing so often. I'm terrible at emotional writing. And yet emotional writing, we know that our brain, system 1, system 2, we call it, the emotional side is always faster in terms of driving a decision. Our rational brain sometimes catches us and stops us from making a decision. And I am not very good at communicating me myself, despite all the practices throughout the years of bringing in that emotional side to my content and to my site. There's other people that do it incredibly well, but I've learned to compensate that weakness with a lot of face-to-face conversations to sell the academy, and that's how I did it. Call it procrastination and laziness to learn or write better, but that's just one of the many mistakes that I need to correct along the way.
That makes total sense. Make total sense. Just to summarize sort of our conversation on the Academy page in itself, would you say the conversion rate, is that something that really is important for you, or in that particular setup, or is that is there other things that you focus on more, such as winning partners with the
Yes,
marketing?
that's exactly it. I think that for me, the biggest issue that people have when it comes to conversion rate is understanding one of the pieces of the data in the conversion rate, which is the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You divide traffic by sales. So you got to be very careful with that number. And I'm not even talking about the academy, but all the performance marketing stuff that we used to do. I can improve anybody's conversion rate in 4 seconds. I go into their Google Analytics and I filter out shit traffic,
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant traffic. And that's the difficulty, is that people chase traffic. Now you need to chase traffic. Don't get me wrong, but if you don't understand the targeting of that traffic, it really doesn't matter. So if you have 10,000 visitors at a 2% conversion rate, great, but you could have 1,000 visitors at 20% conversion rate. You could have, I was going to say 100 at 200% conversion rate, but hell, why not? They might buy the courses twice. It's your targeting. I think it's how you find your audiences. And for me, one of the things that I did wrong again, is that I wasn't niche enough. I thought I was niche enough with the whole CRO component.
Mm-hmm.
I should have been more specific in some of the courses to a retail environment, SaaS environment, small or medium size, B2B. Despite the principles will apply to everything, I think it would have helped from a conversion point.
Makes total sense.
To have a more targeted or niche message. But our human instincts is to say the more niche I get, the less money I'll make, because it's too targeted of an audience. So you're stuck in a chicken or the egg situation of fighting your own self. But that would be my advice, is actually just have the most purest of specific messages. And I see people that do courses that do it incredibly well. Like I know this person who has an arts and craft course channel. And the course is like a beautiful little 30-minute course, and it's tailored to a very specific set of keywords, and it's like 40% conversion rate.
Very good.
Me, it's specialist, it's all that. And I also recommend that people spend more time educating themselves, not just with this academy, but Conversion Excel, Flint McLaughlin, who has an amazing videos at Marketing Experiments. Read every single book from Barry Schwartz, Sheena Iyengar, Daniel Ariely. I've built so many tests thanks to Daniel Ariely's. I actually have one of his board games somewhere here. It's crazy. CRO is the hardest thing because it requires so much education. The one thing that I do is I wake up every day at 5 o'clock and I read and I study every day. When I'm walking to work, I am listening to all the books that I just mentioned about human psychology, Daniel Kahneman. You need to know all these principles. When I come back at night, I do the same thing. And if you are not passionate, I love teaching, but I probably learn 3 times more than I teach.
Very good. Very, very interesting. So I'm curious, where do you think maybe your business in conversion rate optimization, or maybe even conversion rate optimization in a whole, is going towards in the next 1, 2, maybe even 5 years? Like, what kind of movements do you see happening while being in the space? Is there a focus to bring those practices more online, maybe even through education, like you are doing it? But like, what do you see? Like, what does a conversion rate optimization specialist do in 5 years from now?
Well, he makes a lot of money because The one thing that I have seen in the past 5 years is the astronomical salaries that are increasing for lower and lower experience time,
Hmm.
which is quite phenomenal. It's gobsmacking, and especially in a market. So, I mean, London is probably one of the most competitive digital markets on the planet, because the ad spend per capita in the UK is one of the highest in the world.
Hmm.
The density of agencies and high caliber agencies and technologies with very gifted people is insane here. Um, so where is CRO going? One, I think that, and we talk with other CRO, I used to talk with a lot of other CRO agencies. There's a huge problem in scaling the CRO discipline at agency level. Huge. Even some of the largest media agencies in the world, their CRO teams are still 20, 30, 40 people at best.
Hmm.
And they might have hundreds of people in media. And thinking about why is that is quite interesting. So I don't think that there's good frameworks. I think there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of experience, but there's no consistent methodologies across the board, which prevents us from scaling and specializing. Where is it going? It's going in-house, right? There is no doubt that we've gone through a huge plethora of lots of micro consultants and agencies in the conversion space. The reality is, I think for me, it's a discipline that you should have in-house. Just like the big supermarkets will have their retail specialists and analysts to organize their supermarkets. We know when you arrive, I just learned this with a very good friend, vice president who organizes the retail optimization in Tesco supermarkets. When you arrive in a supermarket, it's called a deceleration and orientation zone. I love it. I call it position and direct for a home page. The parallels were insane, but all those disciplines are in-house.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to the conversion, pricing, persuasion, content, all of these disciplines, you need to bring it in-house. And I think that's where the direction is going. We're still omnibulated to over-focusing on technology.
Hmm.
Forget technology. I always say that technology cannot tell the difference between love and affection.
Hmm.
And until then, you need to rely on human beings to learn how to craft a story. We are still talking about stories. Now, if you're selling a Rihanna CD, and I hope there's no copyright issues for saying her name, okay, there's not a lot of value proposition. You listen to her song, well, that's not really a Rihanna song, but fine. But when you're trying to sell a complex SaaS service, when you're trying to sell something that has a lot of emotional values or fear, like insurance or in fintech, you need to tell a perfect story. A pretty sexy website doesn't sell without the right content. The right content on an ugly website can,
I see.
right? And we forget that.
That makes a lot of sense. And since you mentioned that it's going to be moving in a house, and you also mentioned that your courses, you wanted to actually specify them more in specific niches. What do you see are the niches that are adopting an interest in conversion rate optimization? We know the travel industry, we know the finance industry,
Yes.
but do you see others that are, picking up?
So subscription is gargantuan. I've about 60, 70% of the companies that I've worked with, of which there's about 80 of them, were one form of subscription or another. Um, with my new role at Kaspersky, I used to work with their competitors. uh, so definitely anything that has to do with the subscription model and then the niches within the subscription model, right? So if you're a subscription on SaaS or food delivery or training, physical training and all that. Those are the sites, those are the people that just need to be damn good at that user psychology. Um, that said, the models that I teach, we did it at agency. In agency, we worked with travel, we worked with fintech, we worked with Pfizer and pharmaceutical, we worked with all types of SaaS services, and the models and the principles were the same. But that's why I try to build as well a lot of either industry specific examples to try to illustrate how something comes to life. But yeah, it's an interesting. Every time you think that it's going to go right, it sort of also goes left. But I think in-house, and it has to be part of core education. What has surprised me is that in digital, proportionate to other industries, the percentage of budget that goes to education and training is still tiny. You still come to end of year budgets, and people still don't spend their entire budgets. And there are no objectives inside of most companies to check, validate, and push education. And that drives me bananas.
Totally understand that. Totally understand it. So we're sort of nearing the end. I would have like two small last questions there. So you mentioned that you've been building up, obviously, your own agencies, your education company around the topic of CRO. What would be one thing that was really helpful for you to grow the business? Maybe sort of something you could give as an advice, or maybe just as an experience to other people building up their experience in the CRO industry. Um, what was helpful for you to actually build the business and build a foothold?
Wow. Wow.
It's a big one.
Yeah. So, some fond memories are coming and certain tears are welling up. Look, I've had more failures than success. Let's be very, very clear. So I am not a benchmark of successful entrepreneurship. Okay. I am probably a good example of perseverance,
Mhm.
faith. I believe firmly in a very useful, your product has to be useful. But the commercial side, the distribution side is key. It's key, it's key, it's key, it's key, and it's always harder than you think. And at agency level, we did a very good job at it. It took us, 10 years. We had a system. Revenue growth was steady and beautiful, and the business was worth a lot of money. I mean, really worth a lot of money. But otherwise, the distribution side is hardcore. And that's for me one of the biggest traps. That said, if you start nailing that out, because of the transparency in our industry, if your courses are shit, and let's not, in French we say, let's call a chat, let's call a cat, right? Your product has to be good, right? And if you, especially you look at word of mouth and your social, people need to back that up. But you get caught out very, very, very quickly on the sales side, especially if you want to be earning a significant amount of money.
Makes total sense. So I want to wrap up with the last question around this. If you would summarize, if you would step out into the conversion rate optimization space again now as your first step a couple of years back, with everything that you learned, what would be one advice that you would give yourself if you would restart a business just like you've been doing in the past?
If I went back, the only thing that I would say is whatever effort you think it's going to take, double it. This morning we were looking at yearly budgets and the assumptions that were behind things. I was like, nope, it's not, it's harder than you think. Double it. And if you can't survive that exercise, so if you think, okay, I can do 1 year without revenue while I grow my business, I'm going to tell you right now, double it. If you think that you can build something for $10,000, I'm going to tell you double it and triple it. And that I think would have helped me set better my expectations. And then focus on, if you want to make something really easy, identify your user audience. Yes, I do have the perfect thing. 80-20 rule. The mistakes that I do, I push too hard to get it to 90% level of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Now I say, get your product out there. 60% quality, 65% quality. Have your game plan to make an amazing product, but get it in the face of your users and your products to get that life cycle feedback, because a lot of the assumptions we do of looking at ourselves and our own business is completely warped, and that's the concept of perception. And your perception of something, even if we're looking at exactly the same thing, you're going to see and perceive this completely differently. And we go sideways a lot because of that. So one, double the level of effort, double time, double costs, and two, have a plan, have the ethical approach of building a beautifully good product that you are proud of and that the users go, I know why I paid. But in the development of your company, get that minimum viable product out to market as fast as possible, because it also helps you find the channels of distribution fast, and especially it will correct so many false assumptions that you will start with, or your business partners or your company. So that's my, I've tripped upon that one a couple of times. I learned that the hard way. And me, I'm so not, 65% guy. I am like the 95% guy. But yeah, fail fast, get that prototype to market, build the smallest possible, give it away for free if you have to, build the smallest one, get that user input immediately.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Ivan, to share this sort of, I think words that are shaped of years and years of hard work and experience. So I really appreciate it, and I really want to thank you to be part of the show today and have given
Thank
us
you.
your valuable time. As a last thing, if somebody's interested in the Optimization Academy because
Yes.
they've been sort of seeing what you've been talking about here today, what would
Yes.
be the first thing they should be doing in order to get in touch with you guys?
Listen, just go to the site. There's free courses. You can sign up for free, register for free. I'm not even going to bother emailing you or remarketing you at all. So just watch a few courses, right? There's one on layered images. I built one which I adore. I love it. It's long, but I love it, on decoy products, the psychology and how I love it. You got to try it. It manipulates your brain and all of that. It's really, really cool. If this is the type of thing that you like, then you can buy it online. I can send you an invoice. Get your company to pay for it, expense the damn thing, and enjoy yourself. And if you, but make the effort to look at all the free courses, because I try to put in the free courses to really show you the different types of things that the courses involve. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, I am sure you've learned something for free, which is what I wish everybody would do every day.
Very good. Thanks a lot for being on the show today, Ivan.
Listen, thank you very much for reaching out. It was my pleasure.